Sabi natin natatanging wine na tatak at pusong Pinoy, isa sa mga bagay na maipagpapasalamat natin sa produktong ito ay ang paglalagay sa Pilipinas sa mapa bilang isa sa global producers of quality wine.
So what we're hoping is it becomes a regular part of the repertoire of drinks of Filipinos because it's affordable, it's something they can feel good about,
Aspirations of the Filipino people. Discover the story behind each bottle when you visit the bottle display and detailers area. From the lush vineyards to your glass, learn about the unique origins that make every sip an experience. And again, just in case you missed it, the booths are just so conveniently found at the back of the event area. Please use our hashtag Novellino. Our President and General Manager, Sir Chris Kimbo, along with his wife, Miss Alodia Goseng Viao Kimbo, and our Director and Chief Strategy Officer, Mr. Carlos Kimbo, along with his wife, Miss Dara Shaw Kimbo, along with their lovely kids. Hello, family. So immortalize this very special moment. Again, don't forget to tag at Novellino Wines, and don't forget to include our hashtag Novellino.
Thank you, Kevin. This is the second time Kevin's introduced me. The last time was actually at Chris's wedding. So always thank you for the warm introduction. I'm Carlos Kimbo, and I just want to thank everybody for coming out to our winery and extend a warm welcome as we invite you to join us in celebrating 25 years. Thank you. Today, I wanted to take the opportunity to tell you about where we've been and where we're going, as many people till this day may not even realize we produce Novellino right here in the Philippines. We're excited to show off our world-class facility so you may share the feeling of pride that this country can produce high-quality wine. At Novellino, we are a family-owned business founded by my father, who you'll get to hear from shortly. Now, I remember when he had the idea to start the winery in the Philippines. I was just in high school, and actually we were living in Minnesota, in the US. Some might have said it was crazy not just to introduce Novellino to a traditionally non-winemaking, wine-drinking country in Southeast Asia, but essentially doing so going back and forth across the world. So for those of you who complain about traffic here in Manila, imagine that work commute. Knowing my dad, whose background was in marketing and marketing some of the world's greatest brands, there was never a doubt that he would succeed when he recognized there was an opportunity to bridge the gap between the inspiration of wine and the accessibility to consume wine. Now here we are, 25 years later, from our humble beginnings in a 300 square meter sublease to now this over 1 hectare world-class winery. We were able to carve out our place in a country that is traditionally run by big conglomerates focused on beer and spirits to thrive, because it turns out the Filipino people love Novellino. But this wasn't done without the help of so many, and I'd like to take a moment to recognize the hard work and dedication from our partners and our team members to our vendors and our family members. Thank you, Tita Tepton and the Alphabet Soup team for putting on such a wonderful event today. My brother moved here to the Philippines in just his early 20s to help out my dad, and especially my mother, who made so many sacrifices in the very beginning as she was working countless hours in the bakery to support our family as my dad made that commute. So with that said, we invite you to enjoy the festivities today, and let's have a fun day together celebrating 25 years of Novellino. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Carlos. Novellino's 25th anniversary video. Enjoy it.
Always consider our job to be like a missionary job, which is to convert people into wine drinking. We're more concerned about making Filipinos develop a taste for wine, fulfill their aspirations so they can actually have wine. I'm the founder and CEO of Novellino.
I'm Chris Kimbo, the president and GM of Novellino.
Hi, I'm Carlos Quimbo. I'm a director at our family business, Novellino.
All over the world, everybody has a kind of wine, from even in regions, like in France there's Bordeaux, and south of France. In Italy there's Tuscany, there's all these regions, It's a very regional product, very particular product. Everybody aspires for wine. Here in the Philippines, there was no such wine that really fulfilled the aspirations of consumers.
Philippines didn't have their own wine, and the Philippine palate really wants something that's sweet. And so we went out to innovate on the process of making wine to make something for that Philippine palate, which proved to be more difficult to do, but in the end, we were able to actually give a wine that Filipinos enjoy. It's been a fascinating 25 years of history in the making, or wine making, if you will.
When my dad first started Novellino, we're kind of surprised to hear that he was starting a wine business in the Philippines. Maybe even thought it was a little bit crazy. And it turned out to work, and to work out really well.
The first group of people that we dealt with was a distribution company they called Market Reach, and we folded in our distribution through them, and they had a vacant lot beside their facility. Believe it or not, only 300 square meters, even smaller than our marketing office now in Makati. But we did accommodate the 13 tanks and all the equipment in the 300 square meter space.
When I came in 2012, we had just built a brand new facility in Laguna that we're really proud of. But fast forward, 10, 12 years later, and we're already at full capacity on that first line. So we had to find a way to increase our output. So all of our equipment is from Italy. The machines that we got in, and I can confidently say, are among the best winemaking equipment that you can source.
There's that big misconception about sweet being cheap, but the reality is sweet wines are much more complicated to make.
I know that it's a much more difficult process. It requires way more filtration, way more steps.
The simple solution would be, hey, don't ferment the juice completely. Keep part of the sweetness in the juice.
If we were to make dry wine, our lives would probably be easier, but that's not the wine the Filipino people want. And in order to do that, we have a way more complicated process.
We perfected that system, developed one that was stable, which is what it is now.
Novellino itself has become a vibe. So we've made a wine for, we feel, everyone on their journey of getting into wine. The most popular wine that we produce is going to be the sweetest for the lowest alcohol, and that would be like our classic red, which we call Rosso Classico. And then as we ferment more, we get into our sparkling variants like Vivace line. And then we got kind of creative here, and we introduced some natural fruit extracts. So we have some casual wines that have natural strawberry extract, which we also source from Italy. Luscious Peach is a great one, and of course also wild blackberry.
And so I remember this first taste of this sparkling, sweet, fizzy, very novel style of wine, but it was very easy to drink.
In terms of wine drinking and culture, it's become synonymous with celebration. We want to share this beautiful thing with other people. We want more people to celebrate. And I guess I'm excited for that mission of getting more Filipinos to drink wine, because we believe wine is really special. In winemaking, it can be, the byproduct of making wine can be something that can be quite toxic. And we actually innovated on a way to treat that water without having to introduce it to wildlife.
We're part of an ecology system where we have to participate as well in making sure that, in fact, the world will be a better place to live in. We produce it in a way that we contribute towards improving the environment.
We've been always on the hunt in searching for other ways that we can fulfill aspirations, whether that's through wine, which we are always going to be in R&D and developing new styles and new interesting products, or in other ways. For instance, we one day will build a hospitality project for the Filipinos to enjoy.
Round of applause for Mr. Chris Kimbo.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our customers, you're back there, our distributors and key accounts, to all the media, thank you for being here, and thank you for allowing us to share our story. So when we started this company, we started on a very basic premise, and it was this idea that ang wine, special, di ba? When you think of wine, you think of all of these very aspirational things. Parang social ang wine, right? I always joke that if you're on a date with someone, and you put a bottle of beer between you two, hindi masyadong romantic ang date mo, di ba? Pero kung wine, mas romantic. And you think of all of these very nice aspirational things when you think of wine, like culture, art, sophistication. I even asked ChatGPT, I said, ChatGPT, make me a picture of Asians drinking wine. And this was the picture that ChatGPT gave me. Elegant people in suits, women in gowns drinking wine. So this is the universal appeal for wine as a product. Would you guys agree with me? Yeah. But if you look at the consumption per capita of wine, okay, so you take the total amount of wine consumed in a country, you divide it by the population. Let's go to France first. Medyo lasingero in France, diba? They're drinking 50 liters of wine per person per year. That's 1 bottle per week per person. In the US, you have 1 bottle per month. Of course, Australians like to drink, so about 2 bottles per month. Anong Philippines? 1 coffee cup worth of wine per person per year. So you have hundreds of times more consumption per capita in these developed countries than you do in the Philippines. And so I'm reminded of the lesson my dad taught me about the 2 African shoe salesmen. Diba, dalawang shoe salesmen go to Africa. The first one goes there, he sees the mga paa of the Africans and he sees walang sapatos. Tapos he goes back to his boss, he says, Boss, walang negosyo dito kasi walang sapatos, right? The second shoe salesman goes to Africa, he sees the exact same thing, and he goes back to his boss. What does he say? Grabe, boss, ang opportunity to sell shoes sa Africa. They saw the exact same thing, they draw a completely different conclusion as to what the market opportunity is. And we have market research to show us that in the last 5-10 years, wine has been the fastest growing category in the alcoholic beverage industry. So, if the appeal for wine, sobrang mataas, it's so high, bakit ganon? Why is the consumption of wine so low in the Philippines? And we think it's really a simple answer. We think it's the taste of the product, we think it's the price of the product, and we think it's the familiarity of a brand. Okay, first one is taste. Ang Pinoy gusto niya matamis. We love things that are sweet. We love our spaghetti from Jollibee. Sobrang matamis. We love halo-halo. We love everything that is sweet. And what many people don't know is that in order to make a sweet wine, mas mahirap ang gawin. It's a much more complicated process in terms of winemaking. So wine, no matter how expensive, even if I'm talking about Chateau Margaux 2009, that Chateau Margaux came from grape juice. And at some point that grape juice was matamis. But what happens in wine is wine goes through a process called fermentation, where the yeast converts the sugar into alcohol. Kung ubos na ang pagkain, dry ang wine. And that's why most wines are not sweet. But we knew here in the Philippines that Filipinos wanted something sweet. So we had to innovate the way to only allow some of the sugars to convert into alcohol. The most popular Novellino wines are only 4.5% alcohol. So mas mababa ang alcohol, mas mataas ang sweetness. Gets mo? Is that clear? So the first factor was taste. The second factor, of course, is price. It has to be affordable to the Filipino people. My dad mentioned that we're on a missionary job to get more Filipinos to consume wine. So we have to make sure that the wine is affordable to the Filipino people. If you look at the wealth distribution of the Philippines, you look at the richest of 70% of Filipinos, after all of their costs of rent and utilities and all these different expenses, they still have to save almost an entire day's wage to be able to afford one bottle. So we know that the magic price point is somewhere between 200 and 300 pesos. So the first factor, taste. The second factor, price. The third factor, familiarity of a brand. I think all of you would agree when you go to a supermarket and you see hundreds of different wine brands, masyado magulo, di ba? Let's be honest, I'm in the market and I think that most people, they just think, kung mahal masarap, kung mura hindi masarap. Am I right? Yes. And it's just not true. We know from the business, first of all, that some of those wines are the exact same wine with a different label, first of all. And second of all, you do not get $900 more utility out of a bottle of wine that's $1,000 versus one that's $100. And we learned that literally from University of California, Davis, who did a study on it. So, consumers are overwhelmed with an extensive wine selection. Bakit ganon? Why are there so many different brands when you go to the wine section of a supermarket? And the reason is simple. Wine is a very old product, and it's really made to suit the taste preferences in the region that it was made. Historically, so let's go back like 500 years, you would have a estate or a chateau, and on that estate you would plant a vineyard. And from that estate and on that property, you would do the winemaking, you would do the fermentation, you would do the blending in the region where that wine or that grape juice was grown. But what's happened today with globalization is that every segment of the supply chain has become independent of each other. So now you have a farmer, basically a landowner who plants a vineyard, and he's just a farmer. And he sells his grape juice to a winemaker. The winemaker sells his wine to a blender. The blender blends it, sometimes sells it to a bottler. Then the bottler sells it to a distributor, and the distributor sells a multitude of different brands. But what we do differently is we source the grape juice as a commodity because all you need to make wine is grape juice. And we're able to get the best prices from all over the world, from Chile, from Spain, from Argentina, from Italy, from the US. And we can look at it and say, is this wine good for winemaking? And then we own the rest of the supply chain from there. We do as much of course, the making of the wine, the fermentation, the bottling, the blending, and we distribute as much as we can. A quick lesson here. My dad always gives me a lesson in economics. Why do third world countries stay third world countries? Because what we do is we export our sugar at the lowest possible price and we buy it back from the country in the form of candy. Diba? Who wins in that transaction? We've reversed that trend. We source the grape juice for the lowest price and we put the value added in the Philippines. And by doing so, we've been able to address those three factors of taste, price, and familiarity. Taste, because we can make a consistent product to our specifications. We joke that every year is a good year at Novellino. 2, price. We can offer our wines at an affordable price point. And then 3, maybe this is the biggest one, we can invest in our brand with full confidence. You know, we have among the most followed wine brand pages in the entire world. I think we're number 3, behind Moet and Chandon, and I think there's maybe Barefoot, and then there's Novellino. Those companies are way bigger than us, but it just goes to show how strong of an impact we have on the culture here in the Philippines, and how strong of a brand we have. This is a video my wife made lately. Thank you very much. As you can see, we have a lot of organic engagement from our fans as well. So we market wine like a lifestyle product. Through doing this, we've been able to achieve market leadership. So as you can see here, in terms of volume of wine, so liters of wine consumed, analysts say that we have as much as 41.6% market share, which is quite high. And thank you. And you know what's amazing about this? Remember I mentioned earlier, the same study shows that the wine category is growing every single year at a compound annual growth rate of around 5%. And look what happens to Novellino consistently every single year. We're taking more and more market share. So what does that mean? It means that Novellino is driving the growth of consumption, of wine consumption in the Philippines.
Why do you describe me as dashing? I would have preferred handsome, like Chris. Anyway, 25 years is really a very long time. Dali nawawala yung aking notes. Very long time. We had very humble beginnings. We were in a 300 square meter facility in Valenzuela. If you can imagine, and to accommodate all of the tanks we had, all of the necessary facilities to produce millions of bottles of wine. It came to a point where we needed more space, and we were renting houses from within the vicinity, until it came to a point that there were no more houses to rent. And so we decided, we needed to build our own facility. But just to give you a perspective, that 300 square meter location we had then has now transformed into a 1.3 hectare facility that we have right now. It's always nice to look back. May kasabihan sa Pilipino ang hindi marunong tumingin sa pinanggalingan. Can people complete that, please? Hindi makakarating sa karoroonan, di ba? So, marami pa kami karoroonan, I hope, and we will always remember yung aming pinanggalingan. And I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Miss Mary Uy. Mary, she was our partner in Market Reach, who did, really started our business. And thank you very much, Mary. So, moving here was, quite something, lots of space, lots of room, and we really appreciate this facility, and we really got so carried away. I don't know if you guys noticed, we like art. I don't know if you know that, there's a piece of artwork here by no other than the master sculptor, si Ed Castrillo. And this is his last commissioned work before he passed away. So we have that, we have a few other art pieces inside the facility. So we really love this place, and we really want to make it really as beautiful as the industrial park is. And by the way, I'd also like to acknowledge the presence here of Chito Saldariaga, who is the president of Carmel Ray. Chito, can you stand up to be acknowledged? And Chari Yulo, who is the big boss of the Yulo conglomerate, if you like, So when we built this facility, we said, we will future-proof it, and we will build it so that it will be good for 10 to 12 years. That was quite a, sino na dyan? Si Manny Villar? Okay, anyway, I'll keep on going until, is he here right now? Oh, Manny. Again, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my former classmate, my fraternity Brad, and my fellow UP loyalist. He's the chairman of the UP Alumni Association, which we're part of. I'll do a quick story about Senator Villar here. Okay lang ba, Manny, kung kikwento ko? When I was starting the business then, before I actually started, I went to see him. Mag-Brad kami. I asked him, what do you think, Brad? Iniisip ko, magtayo ng wine business. That. And so, he looked at me with a blank stare and said, wine sa Pilipinas? But, instead of being discouraged by that comment, I took that as an encouragement. Sabi ko, sige, papakita ko sa'yo na kaya namin to. And so now, we're happy to show you, Brad, na okay na kami ngayon. Anyway, let's thank Manny Villar for his presence here, and thank you, Manny, for coming. For myself, or maybe even a company in the next 25 years. But anyway, Carlos and Chris are here. They'll be the ones to worry about the next 25 years. We talked earlier about our missionary job. We are on a mission to convert Filipinos into wine drinking. We're not about grabbing market share from other types of beverages or other types of wine. We're after converting Filipinos one at a time, and hopefully we'll come at a point where Novellino becomes part of the repertoire of drinks of Filipinos. That's the whole idea. What that number will be, we don't know. We have equipped ourselves now to have 3 times more the capacity than we have right now. When we started to build this facility, we've projected doubling the capacity, and we've exceeded that already, and that's why we built this new facility. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe my hope is that we will expand even more in the next 10 to 12 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're in a very good place. If you look at the demographics of the Philippines, about 60% of the population is under the age of 25, meaning that in 10 years, you can imagine, we have 25 million new potential wine drinkers. 25 million. And these people have never tasted wine, but they've also never tasted beer, they've never tasted spirits. We know that wine only represents about 4% of the category as compared to beer and spirits. So we believe naturally, like I said, that wine has a higher value proposition than those. And I showed you earlier the consumption per capita, right? The ceiling for this is much higher than we think. So we think just by the nature of the demographics, if we can position our brand and our product properly, we can capture a lion's share of that market in the future, hence the investment in the new winery.
I'll just quickly add to that. It's interesting in that we have a lot of inbound interest from other countries who have looked at the Philippines and been very surprised at what we've been able to accomplish. And it's become like a case study. And there's, interestingly, incidentally, my dad, his background was from the soft drinks business before this. He was at Pepsi. And there is potentially opportunities abroad in other countries that have similar characteristics to the way the Philippines looked when we started 25 years ago. So who knows, maybe there's a way for us to expand to other countries and we can potentially produce Novellino abroad. And that's been one of the exciting opportunities we've also been looking at as well.
Just one more point to add to that. Would you believe that there's not one brand of wine in the world that is more than 1% market share? Wala talaga. You know, I mean, it's a very regional product. And if you add up, you know, the different brands of wine, there's no one brand that is more than 1% market share. In other words, there's no Pepsi or Coke in the wine business. And as Chris showed you before, as reported by Euromonitor, these are not our numbers, this is from Euromonitor, we have 41% market share. So we were able to prove that in fact, you know, even as a regional product in the Philippines, it's a huge country, you know, we can generate as much as 41% market share. And if we can attract other countries, especially non-wine drinking countries, to follow the same strategies that we have, then maybe there's really a future there.
Thank you, sir.